Hello and welcome to the Social Recruiting Show. I'm Katrina Collier, author of The Robot Proof Recruiter and a candidate engagement facilitator and speaker. I'm being very distracted by my guests. I'm of course joined by my gorgeous co-host, who I've decided is on this side, but he may be on this side, Glenn Martin, talent acquisition guru. That's probably the easiest way to describe what you do, isn't it? And of course, we are joined by another talent acquisition sourcing god, my absolute mentor, Mr. Jim Stroud, who I know is at the bottom of the screen. I've got that right. And who very kindly is on the back because he had to read it and write a review, the poor man. Welcome to the Social Recruiting Show. Now, we did have you not so long ago, but unfortunately, It was a complete monumental mess with Wi-Fi. So today,
we had a comedy of errors there, that's for sure.
So even though I don't trust LinkedIn Live, we're doing this, right? We're out there.
Let's go for it. Let's do this.
So how are you, Jim?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
Yeah. How's Atlanta? Have you got some sunshine?
Yeah. But I don't know if you can see it behind me, but it's a beautiful sunny day here in Hot Atlanta, as we call it. And beautiful day. Beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Good. Does Jim need an introduction? Do people know who Jim is?
I think an intro would be good. Definitely.
Yeah.
Because for sure.
Yeah, well, I am, let's see, trying to drown out my daughter and my niece there in the other room. Hopefully you guys can't hear them. I sent them a text saying quiet. I don't want to be picked up.
That's not going to work.
Say head.
Yeah, maybe I should do that next time. So yeah, I've been involved in recruiting and sourcing for 2 decades, which is amazing. It's hard for me to even.
You're only 5. It's impressive.
Well, thank you. Work for such companies as Microsoft, Google, Siemens, a string of startup companies. Work for Randstad Sourceright, and as I said, several startup companies. And I've been very fortunate to speak at various conferences around the world in relation to recruiting. I'm also have been the MC of SourceCon several times and the publisher of a few books and videos and podcasts.
Where can people get your books? Because they're rather cool, aren't they?
Yeah, they can go to Amazon.com. And if you would do that, then on behalf of Diverse Credit Institutions, thank you for your support. Because they would appreciate it if you bought it, believe me.
Buy a couple, 100.
Please.
It's funny thing having written a book. I feel like, back at like music producers, when they produced a vinyl record and people would tape it onto a cassette and pass it around, people keep going, I'm going to buy one and share it. And I'm like, oh, no, you're not. No, you're going to buy them for your team. Yeah. It's quite weird. Yeah.
So,
position.
Authors, what's the most gratifying part about publishing a book?
The most gratifying part is when you put your heart and soul and so much time and effort into it and people appreciate it and they say good things about it. It feels like a validation of all of your work and you like it so much. At least that's it for me, the validation.
Yeah, I agree, because like I've said on so many times, you are never as vulnerable as when you put it in writing to be picked to pieces. And it's when, so Glenn Elliott, CEO for Award Gateway, has written the most extraordinary review. And he's the CEO, as the fact he gets it, what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And I just read it. I was like, I didn't ask for that. It was just involuntary. It's really long. It's really in depth. I'm just reading it going, oh my God, he gets it. So if he can get it, everyone can get it. And it's just like, because, CEO is not a recruiter day to day. And I've written it for day-to-day recruiters. So yeah, completely agree. It's that, they get it. They get what I'm trying to say.
Totally indeed. So Jim,
really important.
What are we going to be talking to you about today? The graphic for the show has me in prison. So I'm not entirely sure where this is going to go, but
I thought it was so funny. She was like, can we talk about keeping people? So I thought, oh my God, look.
I didn't see that. I think that would be awesome.
Poor Glenn.
Yeah, the topic is different retention strategies. I did a webinar recently with HireTool about how to retain your employees because it's cheaper to keep her.
Oh yeah.
That's a blues song. I don't know if you guys heard over there in the UK, but it's an old blues song called "It's Cheaper to Keep Her." Yeah, And one of the lines is that marriage is grand, but divorce is 50 grand.
Oh,
that's one of the lines in the song. So it's so yeah.
How did you get more involved in that side when you've been doing so much of the pull bit, the pull and hire? That you've sort of switched sides.
Well, you know what? It's when you have such a this market now, the talent scarcity, and critical skills are needed, and it's easier to train the people you have than to go out and find more people. And it just became another recruiting strategy. It's actually based on the webinar was based on a book, one of my books that I wrote, which is Retention is the New Recruiting, because it's so much better to keep the people you have and to train them so you can retain them longer. So you save, it's a lot of money being lost. Like one of the things that I mentioned, and I got my notes here, so when I trail off, that's what I'm looking at. But in the webinar, I quoted this report from Oxford Economics called The Cost of Brain Drain. And they did this analysis of how much it costs a company every time they lose talent. And I'll read off some of these stats here. So they looked at, Oxford Economics looked across different sectors, IT, accounting, legal, media, advertising, retail. And they said on average, an employee earning about 25,000 pounds a year or more carries a financial impact of 30,000 pounds, ranging from 20,000 to 39,000 pounds for legal firms. So all of that to say, if someone makes around that amount of money, it's going to cost them money. It's going to cost a company at least twice that much to replace them.
Yeah. And when you hear, I know one of the stats I uncovered researching this was that it's 45% of people have decided in the first week if they're staying as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
That whole onboarding piece that we do so badly. It's like, whoa, 45% in the first week.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah.
So what would you, Jim, what would you say to companies that are thinking about, really implementing something that is clearly a retention kind of program? I mean, what as a start of 10, what would you suggest they do? Yeah.
Well, yeah. One thing I like is what IBM is doing. So they have this program where they have the workforce performance evaluation, which is usually like, once a year, and you look at what you've done and that kind of thing. So what they do differently is that they look at their business goals for the next year or so, for next year. And then they see who has the skills needed to progress to do these future projects. And so from that, they'll say, okay, we want to recommend you take this internal course on X, and you take this internal course on Y, so that by the time we are ready to progress to these new projects in the future, you'll have the skills in place to do those things. And so, so I would tell a company to not only look at what you need right now, don't be so reactive, but also be proactive, look at where you want to go, and then start training people for that, because it'll be eminently cheaper to train people you have. And then if the people, go ahead. No.
The trouble is I'm really trying to think of the name of it and I can't. That's why I'm throwing it back to you, hoping you can. There's a really good tool, like a technology that does that across massive organizations. Did you come across that?
There's several. Well, you mean one that looks at what the skills of the company has and then recommends training you, or?
What did you
say?
ProFinder,
no?
ProFinder. Yeah. No, it's the second time I've tried to remember their name. They'll be very unhappy with me that I can't remember their name. Yeah, that's really good.
I haven't heard of that tool. What does that do?
So, it's like an enterprise tool, effectively. And it allows kind of, certainly within companies, people to highlight their key skills so they can start putting together project teams that necessarily might not happen if a company is quite siloed. So it's almost like a collaboration platform for companies, in short. Hopefully that's the best way to describe it. But it is it works really well for enterprises. So
we'll do the normal of pulling your LinkedIn profile. So I've been into it and looked at it. So you can do that. But what it will also do is you can put a project up and say, like, I'm looking for people to help me to deliver this. So someone who may be interested in doing that can go, hey, look at that. I want to be part of that. I've got this skill, which I think I can add. Again, just looking at that, keeping people. And I think that works for all age groups. If anyone's thinking this is a millennial thing, I'm just saying for all the Gen Xers, Right.
That somewhat reminds me of it somewhat reminds me of a tool I've seen called Engage Talent. Have you heard of that tool?
Mm-mm.
No.
What Engage Talent does is it looks at all of your employees, and then it tells you whether or not they are a flight risk based on various things. So if you get a notification that Glenn may be looking for a new gig based on maybe LinkedIn activity or some other kind of social activity,
Right.
then it'll say, you know what, why don't we give Glenn this new project to keep them all happy and excited so he'll stay with the company longer.
Oh, that's kind of naughty stalking, isn't it?
Yeah, that kind of sounds a bit Big Brother, doesn't it?
I don't like that.
Yes.
I know IBM used Watson themselves to work out who was engaged and who wasn't. And IBM, because I remember seeing this a couple of years ago, and IBM Watson was saying, oh, Jim's looking to leave. And the hiring manager's going, no, Glenn is. And it would go, no, Jim is. And they'd be right, you'd be the one that resigned. It was quite extraordinary. But that wasn't just LinkedIn stalking. That was quite complicated.
But like I say, back to your point around the kind of retention piece, Jim, I mean, are there any other kind of suggestions you would make for companies that are, maybe struggling with this? They've tried a couple of approaches, it hasn't really worked.
Sure.
They're still, the attrition rate's still quite, the same. Are there any other sort of, kind of fixes you might suggest to them?
Yeah, one is to look at what's called underserved communities. Like, for example, McDonald's has had this initiative where they had 250,000 summer jobs to fill. So they turned to mature workers or senior citizens. I don't know what the nomenclature is over there.
Old people. Oh, sorry. No, we're not allowed to say that, are we?
Older workers, mature workers.
It was retirees, wasn't it? And part-time workers.
Yeah,
it was awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Yeah, they partnered with AARP, and they secured a lot of talent that way. And it's not just McDonald's, because I did a video on this on my Jim Stroud Show video.
Saw that.
You have McDonald's, Honey Baked Ham, Hardee's, and other fast food kind of places. And they like recruiting these type of folks because they have the interpersonal skills that I think some people don't tend to have. It's more of a second nature there. They're very dependable. One of the comments on my video series, someone mentioned how they come to work early, they're there on time, they're punctual, and they just love them.
It's grateful. Did you remember reading the bit about there's Timpson that will boldly, like, they'll consider anyone for their vacancies, but it was the Grayston Bakery in the US that will actually hire ex-offenders, and that's all they hire. They have open hiring. And so because they end up with really, really loyal staff because they can't get a job anywhere else.
Yeah.
And they just train them up. And it's that's really, really cool little case study in there. I loved that.
Yeah, you
make reference to...
You go ahead, Dan. No, you go ahead.
Katrina, you make reference to banning the box in terms of companies, when they do the kind of pre-employment screening. And oftentimes the question is, have you had any kind of previous kind of criminal kind of prosecutions or anything pending? And oftentimes, and I think you make reference to this as well, like the actual kind of some of the people that get charged in the UK, a lot of it is, for basic driving offences.
Driving. 50% of UK criminal convictions are for driving, and only 8% of people all up that have a criminal conviction actually go to jail. Yet we just lump them all in together by having the tick box, do you have a criminal conviction? So it's 70% of companies say they'll discriminate against somebody that ticks that box. So there's this big campaign to get rid of this, do you have a criminal conviction?
So is that like driving under the influence?
Speeding.
Yeah.
Speeding.
Yeah, just driving like a maniac, which we've all done at some point. We get into boy racer mode and off we go. Like, I somehow, touch wood, have not had a speeding ticket. I don't know how that is in 30 plus years of driving, but yeah.
So someone gets a speeding ticket and it's hard for them to get a job after the fact.
Now, if they get a criminal conviction. So it's got to be many. But even if you had one that was for drink driving, if you don't need to drive for that job, it shouldn't be held against you. It could have been something you did 10 years ago.
Because I could see if you were a truck driver or a school bus driver or something like that.
Yeah, but London, hardly anyone bothers to drive here. There's no need. White collar work, don't have to drive. But if they have to be out, delivering parcels, different story, right?
Right.
I think it's got to be screening for kind of role specific, right? And not immediately kind of putting a question mark against somebody's name based on, potentially one very poor choice in a,
10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So specific. Yeah. So back to retention, Jim.
That is retention though, because if you employ people like that, they stay.
Actually, to your point, Katrina, about that, because I interviewed this person, Cherie Garcia. She owns this company called Cornbread Hustle, and I really like the name of her company. Yeah. And she it's a second chance staffing agency. Yeah. And so she recruits people who are ex-offenders. And they are, to your point, as you said, they are fiercely loyal to people who give them a second chance. I mean, she's had people, she was telling me, who tried to recruit them away from her company and offer, a lot more money, but they're not hearing it. They're not hearing it. Very loyal.
No. Because, there's stats around that, isn't there? It'll stop them repeating offending as well.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Jim, you made reference to kind of training as well, right? It's kind of internally offering training to current employees to kind of retain them. And I was interested to kind of understand from your point of view, when do you think that should, when do you think that should start? When should that be purely internal training? Should it be external training? Should it be a mixture of both? Or is it person specific?
If you can do it in-house, fine. But I would just say, I'll make it part of the culture. You get there, that you're hired to do X, and by the time you leave the company, you would have done all kinds of things. I think that it benefits the company overall, because they have a workforce that keeps up with what's going on, and I think the workers like it too, because it makes them more marketable. Because other people will want them as well once they have all these new acquired skills. So it's just a win-win all around.
Yeah, it's funny how there's this reluctance to train and to build. But they might leave. Well, they might not. It's like,
And then if they leave, they can come back. Like, for example, you have something Sodexo does, right? Sodexo has this corporate alumni site, and I cited it also on the webinar. And what Sodexo has is it's called Reconnections. So on the site are about 10 or 20 different testimonials of people who said, you know what, I don't know what I was thinking. Sodexo was awesome. I left. I went out there. It was cold, but they let me come back home.
I love that.
That's basically what the site is. And so you have all of these employee testimonials who left and came back, and how the company would welcome back, kind of thing. And so,
what would you say to hiring managers that have that ridiculous attitude of no, they left, they can't come back? Because that happens, right?
Yeah, they're doing themselves a disservice. It's definitely a job seeker market right now. So the reasons why one of the reasons may be why you're having difficult filling positions, which you probably could fill easily by getting people who used to work for you to come back. You're limiting yourself. You have the opportunity to hire somebody who already knows the culture, who knows what about to marry, so to speak.
Yeah. The stuff they don't put in the employee manual, like which stuff in the fridge is yours and which isn't. Where the loos are, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So much easier. It's kind of crazy, but there's a real attitude, isn't there? Like, you burnt me, you left me. Like, grow up.
Some people take it personally, though, right? It's kind of like, because it's often quoted, employees, people don't leave companies, they leave managers, they leave team leaders, right? So I suppose you can understand why somebody might take it slightly personally, but equally, there's a period of surely self-reflection there, right? Why are these people leaving?
Right. And they should do that. It's this company in Australia called Geeks to You. I think that's what they're called. It's sort of like they do computer repair. Like, do you have Best Buys over there? You know, and now Best Buy is like the super electronic store where you buy all your gadgets, right? And so in the store, they have people who tell you how to program your VCR. If you need that, they got it.
Right? Can you just translate that for the kids on the call who don't know what a VCR is?
It's an old folks DVR. DVR for old people.
Yeah, exactly. Pre-streaming.
Right.
Just don't say beta or beta, whichever way you want to pronounce it. My God.
Laser disc, even worse. So what the company does is they send out a survey to their workers every month or every quarter, I forget what it is. And it's basically, how do you feel about the company? Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you mad? Whatever, right? Really simple, send it out. But they keep a pulse of what's going on. But what I like about what they do, which I think is so brave, especially for, I guess it's not brave if you're treating your people good, but they put the results on the career site. So if you're applying for a job, you can see how the employees are feeling over the past quarter. You know?
Wow.
Cool.
That's transparent, right?
Actually, I have really heard of those. They have really cheesy advertisements. Because when I was back in Sydney last year, I remember seeing their adverts.
Yeah.
They're really cheesy. And it's like a whole, it's almost as bad as the VCR. Like people go, you just needed to turn it on and off.
I can't help but wonder, how many companies do you know will be brave enough to put that on their site? Like
not many at all. I think that level of transparency, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And what about the kind of frequency of those kind of surveys, Jim? You got a view on that? Because I've read some companies are using this like one question, right? So they'll ask a singular question every week, every couple of weeks, to see what the sort of company's feeling about maybe a particular decision that's upcoming or has been made, or there's the kind of monthly or kind of quarterly survey. You know, I mean, in your experience, which one seems to kind of really work quite well to get the right levels of engagement?
I would probably encourage any company to use the Blind app. Have you heard of that? It's called Blind.
No.
And so basically what it is an internal glass door. So employees can complain or talk about whatever's going on, and it stays in the house, so to speak. The difference in like Glassdoor is also anonymous. So if I work for company X and you work for company X, we can complain about it, whatever, and unless we give ourselves away, they won't know who's saying it. Assuming the company is like, a big company, not like 10 people.
Yeah.
Glenn
and I working together and be bitching about my co-host.
Every night, this is awkward.
He is really bad. It's obvious, isn't it? Right. But that sounds quite good. My issue with those is I've never trusted them. So like back at our Spring Technology time when Glenn and I were both working there, we'd get the survey and I'd never fill it out because I didn't trust it.
Yeah, coupled with the fact that they were probably tracking it, so they knew exactly filling it in. Yeah.
Collier got it. Collier refuses to fill it out.
But it gives the illusion of privacy. I'll say that. I feel like it's private in it, so I would tell a company to do that. And then there's this other app that a pal of mine produced, Joel Cheeseman from the Chad and Cheese podcast.
Yeah.
All right.
He had an app called, I don't know if he still has it, but he had an app called Morale Me. And basically it was just 4 emoticons, a happy face, a sad face, angry face, something like that. And then once a month, it'll send out a ping. How do you feel about the company? And you hit one of the faces. And then you'll be able to see how many of your workers are happy. Because they're using a mobile app, you can see which location where people aren't happy. And I really like the idea of this product because if I'm, in a big senior position, I can look on a dashboard and say, okay, people are really happy in New York, but they're not so happy in London. What's going on in London? I need to go down there and talk to the managers. And
lack of sunshine.
Yeah. It's always sunny in London, right?
It was. You remember you and I were sitting in the sun.
That's right.
Jim is here in London and I'm getting sunburned. But typical. What happens is all the Americans come to London in August, and August is always bad because all the Americans come in August. We put on our worst weather. Literally every August is grey, which is summer, right? It should be brilliant, but it's not. It's brilliant when you came in June. June was beautiful. I quite like those when you go through customs and stuff, and they have the little in the bathrooms, and you can just
yeah.
I
Same
hit them all the time. They're like very addictive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it'd be cool. Now, if you can imagine, I imagine they would have something like that in like warehouses. The closest I've seen in warehouses that it'll say 300 days without an accident or something like that. You know, it could be something similar to that. You know, put the bathroom thing for the business. I don't know how much that costs, but
well, Happy or Not do that. They spoke at one of my events a long time ago. Happy or Not. Very cool.
Well, another idea, which is also a growing trend over here, is helping workers pay for their college student loans. You know, they don't pay them off. I don't know what the deal is over there, but over here, student loans are huge.
Yeah, I think they're pretty bad here.
It's
they're getting that way. Yeah.
Yeah, we have, and I'll send a link to this if you want. But the federal student loan debt in the United States as of last month was coming up on $1.5 trillion, like past billion, $1 trillion, right? So that's a lot of people who owe on student loans. So companies like PricewaterhouseCoopers, for example, let's say if you come over here and work, then we'll, pay so much every paycheck, or percentage, or 1% or whatever, every paycheck towards your student loan debt. I don't know if it's exorbitant for one person, but it's very attractive to a lot of people when you have, $1.5 trillion in debt, So is
it just education, or is that all of their accommodation and their food and their enjoyment that's in this debt? Like a bank's giving them credit cards or something?
It's supposed that when you have a student loan, the money you use is supposed to go to education.
Right.
Now, whether it truly goes, it doesn't go to candy bars or other stuff that people use. Yeah. That's on the person.
But I also think the other problem that's happened, which I know has happened here, it's happened in Australia, is that too many people have gone into higher education as well. I'm sorry, you can shoot me down if you like, but I don't have a degree. And I'm not saying it because I don't have a degree. I just don't. But it's like back in the day, not everybody went that route. And now we have a shortage in trades where you can make some really seriously good money. But, a shortage of plumbers and plasterers, and because too many people are end up with a degree and then can't find work and have that huge debt. It's like,
times have changed a lot. Like back in my day,
we are all in our 40s. Okay, I might be fibbing a bit about that, but like
when I was in high school, you had metal tech shop and wood tech where they teach you how to stuff. Some schools had auto tech where they told you how to change oil and fix a carburetor, stuff like that. You don't have anything like that in high schools nowadays. Back then it was kind of normal to have that kind of stuff.
The kids are not interested in that anymore, though, Jim. Right? It's like,
are they or aren't they? If they're not shown, how do they?
That's a good point. It's a good point. It's not an option. So
if you're artistic and you can do metalwork and stuff, I'm thinking of the lady that did my table, this beautiful upcycled water tank. It's like her skills as a blacksmith extraordinary. So. I don't know if you're not shown. Okay, I'm aging myself. But from a retention point of view, there are companies out there now saying you can do a degree on the side, come work. Come work as an apprentice and you can get a degree on the side. It's another way to retain people. Loyalty.
Yeah, it's cool.
No debt.
Now you mentioned that. You mentioned that. It reminds me of another retention trend, something called returnships. Do they have returnships? Yes. Okay, so for those who don't know. For those who don't know, returnships are like internships for people who've been on sabbatical from work for a while. And it's brilliant. There are companies like Walmart Labs, which is doing this, which I really like their spin on it. They have Walmart Labs, which is different from Walmart, the store, but they actually have a technology division, believe it or not.
Yeah. Makes sense though. They've got a sell and ship goods.
Yeah, I just don't think about it, but they do have a technology. So their spin on returnships is if you took time off to take care of aging parents or take care of someone older to your family for a couple of years, then we especially want to give you preference in our program. Because we like that you took care of mom and dad, so your career was off kilter for a while because of that. Come on back.
That's so cool.
I thought it was really
definitely.
cool.
That's
It's
so
a good
cool. We
branding
need more of
story.
that.
It's a good employment brand story. You know, I like
Yeah.
Very
that.
much so.
The feeling of that. Yeah.
But it's the feel, isn't it? And when you go back to a company like that, you want to stay because they make you buzz. So
Yeah,
quite
definitely.
nice.
Family
we
again,
literally
right?
have. I make it. We have like 3 or 4 minutes left. This is
Well,
going
yeah.
so
I mean,
fast.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. We're doing half an hour. Well, half an hour. We're not 100% sure when we started as ever, so we're like we think 3 or 4 minutes.
But what about the wider world of kind of recruitment and TA, Jim? What are you seeing? What are you liking? What's interesting you at the moment?
In the world of TA, like interesting. I like that I'm seeing more of a emphasis on candidate experience. I hear that phrase a whole lot more now than I have before. I think part of the reason for that is that there are a lot of sourcing tools and Google Forms, that kind of thing, that makes it easier to find leads. Not necessarily make it easier to recruit them, but it makes it easier to find people. But finding them and then getting them to apply, or networking with them, connecting with them, that's a totally different ball of wax. And I read somewhere that it's good to be a people person because of all the tools out there. You still have to connect with people. So I don't know if there was a book out there that talked about it.
Was it like this one?
It might be. It might be. It might be.
It is amazing how often I pick it up and refer to it. And I wrote it. It's like, it's funny.
What I like about it so much, this book here, what I love about this book so much is that it reminds me to be a human being. You know, we are quick to automate things, and you lose track of folks. You know, people, even before automation came about to the level that it is now, a lot of people took resumes for granted. They don't think that there are people connected to those resumes. It is just a number. It's just a piece of paper. On to the next one. I'll look at it for 3 seconds. To get to the next one, and they lose that humanness to just talk to someone who may know somebody, or they don't take into consideration that maybe they're just bad at writing resumes, but they worked it
right.
So let me go ahead and call this person anyway, because if they're not a match, then maybe they know someone who can refer me.
I bet if we looked at all the 3 of our CVs or resumes, they'd all be bad. like literally, I mean, I don't even think I have one, but yeah, I mean, they'd be bad. It's very hard to write.
And for some roles, I wouldn't even be considered because, like yourself, I don't have a college degree either. But I argue that I've had some accomplishments.
20 years experience.
So yeah.
But yeah.
I always say that. No degree, failed year 11 English, which is the second last year at school, and still managed to write a book. And I just think, really, sometimes we need to actually look beyond. Like, oh, she has 20 years of experience. She's got life experience. Like, that's the same with you, Jim. Like, it's life experience, isn't it? Sometimes let's just move away from that piece of paper. So.
Yep.
Definitely.
We have to end the show. This is so depressing.
Wow.
I know, but half an hour is people's attention spans, isn't it? So, Jim Stroud, thank you for not having Wi-Fi issues. We've had him on 3 times. This is the first time we've got through with not one single Wi-Fi issue. For a man who's so heavily involved in technology, it's an enigma. Thank you as ever for your wisdom.
Sure.
Much appreciated. We shall be back next week with another new guest. So don't forget 3 o'clock or 10 a.m. Eastern, 3 o'clock on a Friday. We shall see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.